Have you ever wondered why your blood pressure stays high, no matter how healthy you eat or how faithfully you take your medication? What if I told you the real culprit isn't what's on your plate, but what's missing from your pillow? That's right. Sleep, or the lack of it, might be silently sabotaging your heart every single night. Here's a shocking fact. If you sleep fewer than 6 hours per night, your risk of high blood pressure jumps by over 20%. And if you already have hypertension, poor sleep can block the effect of your medications, making your heart work overtime, without you even knowing it. Many older adults brush it off. I'm just getting old. I've always been a light sleeper. I wake up a few times, but I still get through the day. But here's the silent danger. Even if you feel fine, your blood vessels aren't. Your heart doesn't get the chance to rest. And over time, that missing sleep becomes a hidden force pushing your pressure higher and higher. In today's video, we're going to uncover why sleeping less raises your blood pressure, what happens inside your body each night you miss rest, and most importantly, what you can do to sleep better and protect your heart. This might just be the wake-up call your heart has been waiting for. So grab a cup of calming tea, settle in, and let's find out what your blood pressure has been trying to tell you while you sleep. For most people, nighttime is when the body slows down. The heart rate drops, blood pressure falls, and the body repairs itself in the calm of deep, restful sleep. But if you're over 55 and not sleeping well, your body isn't getting that break, and your blood pressure, it's staying high, even while you lie in bed. This is called non-dipping blood pressure. In a healthy person, blood pressure naturally dips by about 10 to 20% at night. But in poor sleepers, especially older adults, this drop doesn't happen, and that's dangerous. Why? Because the heart is like an engine. It needs a rest. If it keeps working under pressure 24/7, it wears out faster, and the consequences are serious. Higher risk of stroke and heart attack, especially in the early morning, increased chance of developing chronic kidney disease, a faster decline in cognitive function, yes, memory loss and confusion, greater likelihood of resistant hypertension, where even medication can't bring your numbers down. Let's put it plainly. Sleep is when your blood pressure is supposed to heal, but when you cut corners on sleep, you're cutting your heart's recovery time short. And this isn't just about extreme insomnia. Studies from the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute show that even mild sleep deprivation, just 1 or 2 hours less than needed, can elevate blood pressure the very next day. Yet here's the kicker. Most people don't even realize it. They feel a bit tired. Maybe they nap during the day, but they don't connect the dots between poor sleep and rising blood pressure. And that's the problem. Because every sleepless night stacks the odds against your heart, and over time, it creates a ticking time bomb, one that silently counts down every time you close your eyes, but don't truly rest. In the next part, we'll look inside your body, what actually happens when you sleep too little, and how it turns your bloodstream into a battleground. Sleep isn't just a break from the day, it's your body's control center reset. Miss it, and everything gets thrown off balance, especially your blood pressure. Let's go inside your body and see what happens when you don't get enough sleep. 1. Your stress hormones go wild. When you sleep too little, your body activates a built-in alarm system. The sympathetic nervous system, the same one that's triggered during emergencies. This system releases cortisol, also known as the stress hormone. And while cortisol is helpful when you're in danger, high levels at night are harmful. Imagine trying to sleep while your body thinks it's being chased. Cortisol increases heart rate, tightens blood vessels, and keeps blood pressure high when it's supposed to drop. Your blood vessels stop relaxing. During deep sleep, your blood vessels widen slightly, a process called vasodilation, which allows blood to flow smoothly and pressure to decrease. But when you're sleep-deprived, this process gets interrupted. Instead of relaxing, your vessels stay stiff and constricted. The result? Your heart has to pump harder to push blood through narrow passageways, raising your systolic pressure. Your body becomes insulin resistant. Lack of sleep also messes with how your body handles blood sugar. Even one night of poor sleep can increase insulin resistance, a key trigger of metabolic syndrome. Why does this matter? Because insulin resistance and high blood pressure are two sides of the same coin. Both increase your risk for heart disease, stroke, and dementia. You crave the worst foods. Sleep deprivation doesn't just affect your blood, it messes with your brain too. It reduces leptin, the hormone that tells you you're full. It increases ghrelin, the hormone that tells you you're hungry. And it intensifies cravings for salty, sugary, and processed foods, the exact foods that drive up your blood pressure. That midnight snack? It's not just a craving, it's a hormonal trap set by your lack of sleep. Your heart never gets to rest. Normally, nighttime is when your heart slows down, its version of sleep. But if you don't sleep, your heart doesn't either. And just like a machine that runs non-stop without maintenance, it begins to break down. Irregular rhythms, higher morning blood pressure, increased risk of atrial fibrillation, accelerated heart aging. Let's paint the full picture. Every night you lose sleep, your stress hormones spike, your arteries harden, your blood thickens, your cravings increase, your insulin goes haywire, and your heart gets no break. All while you lie awake, maybe scrolling your phone or tossing and turning, thinking it's just a bad night. But your heart is paying the price. This is why the connection between sleep and blood pressure isn't optional. It's fundamental. And yet so many older adults aren't being told the truth. You might be thinking, I've always been a light sleeper. It's just how I've been for years. But when you're over 60, that light sleep isn't just a quirk. It could be a silent risk factor for high blood pressure, heart disease, and even stroke. Let's talk about who's most vulnerable when sleep starts slipping. 1. Older adults, especially over 60. As we age, our sleep naturally changes. We spend less time in deep sleep. We wake up more often during the night, and conditions like arthritis, restless legs, or frequent urination make it worse. That means your body misses the deep, healing stage of sleep, the very stage where blood pressure usually drops. And without it, your cardiovascular system stays switched on when it should be powering down. For seniors, poor sleep isn't just uncomfortable. It's a signal of internal stress. People with existing high blood pressure. Already on medication for blood pressure? Here's what studies show. If you're not sleeping enough, your medications may not work as well, especially those that are meant to lower your nighttime pressure. This is called non-dipping hypertension, and it's one of the strongest predictors of future heart events. Those with sleep disorders like sleep apnea. If you snore, gasp during sleep, or wake up feeling exhausted, there's a chance you may have obstructive sleep apnea. And guess what? Sleep apnea causes repeated drops in oxygen throughout the night, which sends your blood pressure spiking each time. Over time, this creates a roller coaster effect on your heart and arteries, leading to more damage than high daytime blood pressure alone. People with diabetes or metabolic syndrome. Sleep and insulin are deeply connected, and if you already have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, poor sleep magnifies the blood pressure problem. Insulin resistance raises blood pressure, and poor sleep increases insulin resistance. It's a vicious cycle that worsens with age. So, if you're over 60, if you already take blood pressure pills, if you wake up tired, dizzy, or with headaches, then this isn't just about sleep. It's about survival. When sleep is broken, your blood pressure often rises silently. But that doesn't mean your body doesn't give warning signs. You just need to know what to look for. Here are some of the most common high blood pressure symptoms that often show up in older adults who don't sleep well. 1. Morning headaches. Waking up with a dull, pounding sensation at the back of your head? That's often a red flag. When you sleep poorly, especially fewer than 6 hours, your body may fail to reduce nighttime blood pressure. As a result, your morning blood pressure surges, putting pressure on the brain's blood vessels and triggering those headaches. Many people blame it on dehydration or poor posture, but it's your pressure talking. 2. Dizziness or lightheadedness after waking up. Your brain needs steady blood flow to stay sharp and balanced. When you're sleep-deprived, your nervous system can become overactive, leading to sudden drops in blood flow when you stand up, causing that familiar dizzy spell. In some seniors, this may even lead to falls or fainting, especially if blood pressure medications were taken at night. 3. Heart palpitations or pounding chest. Lying awake and feeling your heart race? This is often due to sympathetic overdrive. Your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight mode because you haven't entered deep sleep. You may notice irregular heartbeat, chest fluttering, shortness of breath when lying flat. These are classic symptoms that poor sleep is pushing your blood pressure and your heart too hard. 4. Excessive sweating at night. Do you wake up drenched in sweat even when the room is cool? This can be a sign of elevated nighttime blood pressure, especially when combined with anxiety or shallow breathing. Night sweats can also be linked to spikes in cortisol and overactive adrenaline, both of which are triggered by sleep loss. 5. Elevated morning readings. This is perhaps the most important sign. If your blood pressure is consistently higher in the morning, despite taking your medication, it could be due to poor quality sleep. Your blood pressure monitor may be showing you what your pillow isn't telling you. Next, we'll uncover common mistakes and lifestyle traps that rob seniors of sleep and unknowingly keep their blood pressure elevated. Some of these may surprise you, even if you think you have a healthy routine. You may be doing everything right, eating healthy, walking daily, taking your meds. But if your sleep is still restless, your daily habits may be quietly working against you. Let's look at the most common traps older adults fall into, often without realizing how deeply they affect blood pressure. 1. Caffeine after 2 p.m. You may think, it's just 1 cup of coffee in the afternoon, I'll be fine. But as we age, our body metabolizes caffeine more slowly. That 3 p.m. pick-me-up might still be in your system at midnight, keeping your brain alert and your blood vessels tight. Result? Shallow sleep, frequent wake-ups. A morning blood pressure spike. 2. Screen time before bed. Whether it's the TV, phone, or tablet, blue light from screens tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. It suppresses melatonin, your natural sleep hormone. And without enough melatonin, you take longer to fall asleep, get less deep sleep, and wake up more often. A restless brain equals a restless heart. 3. Irregular bedtimes. Going to bed at 9 p.m. one night, midnight the next? This disrupts your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that controls blood pressure patterns, hormone release, and heart rate. Inconsistent bedtimes can lead to higher nighttime pressure, morning fatigue, a weakened heart over time. 4. Frequent bathroom trips at night, nocturia. Many older adults wake 2 to 3 times per night to urinate. While some of this is age-related, drinking too much fluid before bed, especially tea or water pills, diuretics, taken late, can worsen the issue. Each bathroom trip breaks your sleep cycle, and each break interrupts your blood pressure's natural dip. 5. Late-night snacking. Eating too close to bedtime, especially salty or sugary snacks, keeps your digestive system active when it should be resting. This causes increased heart rate, elevated nighttime blood sugar, and, you guessed it, higher blood pressure. Even small habits, repeated daily, can lead to chronic sleep disturbance. And when sleep suffers, your blood pressure rarely gets a break. The good news? These traps can be fixed, easily and naturally. In the next section, we'll walk through a step-by-step guide to restoring your sleep and lowering your blood pressure in the process. Now that we know how lack of sleep can silently raise your blood pressure, let's flip the script. You don't need pills to fix your sleep. You don't need a fancy mattress or a sleep study right away. What you need is a routine that tells your body it's time to rest, restore, and reset. Let's walk through practical, science-backed ways to sleep better, so your heart can rest too. 1. Set a sleep schedule and stick to it. Your body has an internal clock called the circadian rhythm. It thrives on consistency. That means go to bed at the same time every night, even on weekends. Wake up at the same time every morning. No more sleeping in just because. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, not less. This routine helps regulate blood pressure patterns, making your body more efficient at managing pressure dips at night. 2. Limit light exposure in the evening. About 1 hour before bed, dim the lights in your home. Avoid screens, TV, phone, tablet. Use warm-colored light if needed. Cool blue light delays melatonin. To boost melatonin naturally, go outside in natural sunlight during the morning or early afternoon. This answers your circadian rhythm and improves sleep quality at night. 3. Cut caffeine and alcohol at the right time. Caffeine can linger for 6 to 8 hours, especially in older adults. That means no coffee or tea after 2 p.m. Watch out for hidden caffeine in soda, chocolate, and even some medications. As for alcohol, it may make you feel drowsy, but it disrupts deep sleep and leads to early morning wake-ups. 4. Build a gentle bedtime routine. Think of this like warming up before a workout, but for sleep. Try this 30 to 45 minutes before bed. A warm shower or bath. Light stretching or breathing exercises. Reading a book, not on a screen. Listening to calming music or nature sounds. The key is to slow down your mind and body. 5. Try breathing techniques to calm the heart. A few minutes of focused breathing can reduce nervous system activity, slow heart rate, and lower blood pressure before bed. Try these. 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly through your mouth for 8 seconds. Repeat 4 to 5 times. Box breathing. Inhale 4 seconds. Hold 4 seconds. Exhale 4 seconds. Hold 4 seconds. Used by Navy SEALs to reduce stress and focus. Both techniques have been shown to lower blood pressure and improve sleep onset in clinical studies. 6. Optimize your sleep environment. Your bedroom should be a sleep sanctuary, not a second living room. Make sure it's cool, 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit, or 15 to 19 degrees Celsius is ideal. Dark. Use blackout curtains or a sleep mask. Quiet. Use a white noise machine or fan if needed. Free of screens, especially TV and phones. One rule: the bed is only for sleep and intimacy. No scrolling, No news, no stress. By making these small shifts, you're not just improving your sleep, you're actively lowering your blood pressure, one night at a time. In the next section, you'll meet someone who did exactly that. A 67-year-old woman who reversed her morning hypertension, not by more medicine, but by simply fixing her sleep. Meet Mary, a 67-year-old retired school teacher from Ohio. For years, Mary struggled with stubborn high blood pressure. She took her medications on time. She ate mostly healthy. But every morning, her readings were still high, often over 160/95, even though she felt fine. She brushed off her sleep problems. "I just don't sleep as well now that I'm older. I wake up a couple of times a night, but that's normal, right?" Her doctor suggested increasing her medication. But Mary wanted to try something else first. That's when she stumbled across a sleep and blood pressure video, just like this one. She decided to make a few changes. Mary's sleep makeover. She started going to bed at 10 p.m. every night, no more late news shows. She moved her afternoon coffee to before noon. She stopped scrolling on her tablet before bed and read a paperback instead. She practiced 4-7-8 breathing each night for just 3 minutes. She took her evening walk after dinner, not in the morning. After 3 weeks, something amazing happened. Her morning blood pressure dropped to 132/82. She no longer woke up with headaches. She felt more refreshed, more calm, and more in control. Her doctor was shocked. Her medication dosage didn't change, but her routine did. Mary's story is a reminder. You don't have to accept poor sleep as part of aging. You don't have to settle for rising blood pressure as normal. You can take back control, starting tonight. Coming up next, let's wrap up with a simple action plan and how you can start restoring your sleep and protecting your heart today. Let's take a moment to connect the dots. You've just learned how poor sleep isn't just tiring, it's toxic. Toxic to your blood vessels, toxic to your heart, toxic to your overall well-being. But the solution isn't found in a pharmacy. It's already inside your home. It starts with your bedroom, your habits, your breath. So here's a simple 3-step action plan to help you start sleeping better and lowering your blood pressure naturally at home. Step 1. Lock in a sleep schedule. Set a bedtime and wake-up time, and keep it consistent, even on weekends. Aim for 7 to 8 hours every night. Keep a sleep journal for 1 week. Write down what works and what doesn't. Step 2. Build your pre-bed routine. Dim the lights. Power down electronics 1 hour before bed. Try a relaxation technique like 4-7-8 breathing, meditation, or a warm shower. Avoid caffeine after 2 p.m. and limit late-night snacks. Step 3. Create a healing sleep environment. Cool, dark, and quiet. No screens in bed. Try calming herbal tea like chamomile or passion flower, unless your doctor advises otherwise. And remember, small changes add up. Each night you sleep well, you're lowering your pressure without even trying. You're giving your heart a break. You're building a future with more energy, more clarity, and fewer pills. So tonight, give yourself permission to rest, not just for sleep, but for healing. Because the road to better blood pressure might just begin with a good night's sleep. Coming up next, a quick recap and one last tip you won't want to miss. Let's recap what we've uncovered today. Poor sleep isn't harmless. It's one of the most overlooked triggers of high blood pressure, especially in adults over 60. Sleeping less than 6 hours can lead to higher cortisol and stress levels, non-dipping nighttime blood pressure, morning spikes, heart strain, and greater risk of stroke. Symptoms to watch for: morning headaches, dizziness, heart palpitations, night sweats, elevated readings in the morning. But the power to change this is in your hands. You've seen how simple habits, like a fixed bedtime, less caffeine, deeper breathing, and a calming nighttime routine helped Mary and can help you too. So what's your next step? Pick just one change from today's video and try it tonight. Comment below. What's the one sleep habit you're going to improve this week? And don't forget to subscribe to Senior Health Guide so you never miss another tip that could protect your heart, your mind, and your future. Because remember, your heart is always listening, and the most powerful healing often begins when you finally sleep. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.